Hey, I'm Ryan, this is my brother Daniel, and this is Rolls in the Family. We are back with another edition of our top 3 board gaming plays of the month for the month of July.
Yeah, I am really excited for this one, and if any of these games you're interested in and want to check out for yourself, we, as always, got links down in the description below, so make sure you go there to check that out, and also let us know down in the comments, what was your top play of this last month? We love to hear maybe new ones to try out. Maybe it's one we've played before, but always fun to hear what people are getting to the table. Isn't that right, Ryan? Fun stuff.
It is. It's good to hear. And we wanted to call out, we are actually next up on the channel after this video, going to be starting our countdown of our top board games of all time.
All time.
You're supposed to do your really shocked face, Daniel.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, hype. I know for me, these types of videos on other channels are oftentimes some of my favorite videos. You get to hear people talk about their favorite games. You get a feel for reviewers' tastes in games. You can get to know us a little bit better, how closely you maybe match up with us. We also are going to be doing a giveaway as part of our top 50 games of all time.
No way.
Yes, you could win a board game from our top 50. So if that doesn't give you enough reason no, you're not eligible. It's in the fine print. Not Dig. Oh, no. If that doesn't give you enough reason to want to just absolutely destroy, pulverize the subscribe button, just a chance to win.
Pulverize.
Got to keep coming up with new
I
new
love
verbs.
That. That's great.
Yeah, stay tuned for that. That should be fun. But let's go ahead and jump into this. We'll start with Daniel's number 3 play.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how to recover after they've just pulverized that subscribe button. Okay, my number 3 play is going to go to a game. Just got it in right before the end of this month here. And a game I've played a lot, and yet, man, it just was a delightful play of it. And it's going to go to the Quacks of Quedlinburg. What more can we say about this game, Ryan? It's
we did review it.
We did review it, yeah. So you can check that out. I taught this to 2 people who hadn't played before. They've played games, but hadn't played this one. And it again just reminds me with this game how awesome it is at being so accessible to just such a wide range of people. Nearly everyone who plays this game ends up loving it. And it was really great because I will say that there are times where maybe you have games of Quacks, and with how much luck there is, sometimes there's just you know who the winner is after 4 rounds or something like that. And those are always a little bit of downers, but man, we had an awesome game of it. First of all, we just had some really fun ingredients in the game. So a few that I actually hadn't even played with before. So one was the yellow chip. If you had 1 yellow chip in your pot, you could go up to 8 whites before busting. And then if you had 3 or more yellow chips in your pot, you could go up to 9 before busting. So I was going all in on that. And that was really cool. And then the purple chip that we had it was the one that lets you upgrade a chip in your pot. So if you have 1 purple chip, you could upgrade a 1 to a 2. You could do a 2, you could do 2 to 4, and then 3, you could do a 1 to a 4. So we actually ran out of all the 2 chips for a certain color because everyone had upgraded all of them, which I don't know if I've ever seen that before. The green chip, if it was the last 2 in your pot, you could grab. There was if you had 1 green, you could grab or if it's 1 green, you could get like a pumpkin or something. It lets you add more chips to your pot. Just some really fun ingredients, but man, it was a tight game. It came down to the last turn, and we had any one of us could have won.
Nice.
I won, so there you go. But listen to these final scores. I mean, it was 52, 51, 50, 46. I mean,
wow.
Just
yeah, it's exactly what you want in that game.
I know, it was so exciting, and just the entire game was just such a joy with the events and everything added together to a really fun time. And I find also when teaching this game to people, what I love so much is because when you first put it on the table, It can maybe for some people be like, oh wow, it looks like there's a lot of rules. But since the game is so cyclical, you're always just kind of you're doing the same thing over and over. You learn. I find people learn it really fast, and the whole end of round upkeep. That's just us kind of walking through it. They don't have to remember that.
Yeah.
So the only part's kind of people have to remember is just the pulling from the bag part, and that's super fun. So I have just been so pleased with a game that has a lot going on, and yet how easy it is, how nice of an on-ramp there is for people when learning that game. So
yeah, totally. I mean, I can't remember if I'm close to 40 plays or something now, and I still, have such a good time with it, especially with switching out the ingredients. And I think it's easy to forget, like, we've played it so much, like the perspective of someone who's never heard of it, and is coming to it for the first time. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just got such kind of exciting, fun mechanisms in it. And like, yeah, it is like one of my favorite, and I think one of your favorite games to introduce to people, just because you get to, I don't know, you introduce them to this just really fun thing, and you're all playing at the same time. There's kind of this energy while you're playing. And yeah, there's few games that have maybe as good of a track record of us playing it with new people and having them really, really love it.
Yeah, it's, whenever you're teaching someone, or whenever you're deciding, okay, what new game do I want to introduce to this group? I mean, there's always a risk with that, because we've had scenarios where you try something and it flops, and man, that just feels terrible. And so to have a game that has it ever flopped? I don't know. It's that good. You can just be so confident that, man, people across, of all different gaming backgrounds are going to enjoy this. So there you go. That was just a wonderful play of it. And man, what a great game. It's one that, again, I know we've praised it before. We've done a review on it, but man, if you have not checked even just looked into this game, whoever you are, this is definitely one to check out, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yep. Good stuff. Awesome. So this month we actually were vacationing a bit together with the family. So we did get some games together this month. And my number 3 is actually one of those. It was the first game ever played in at least by me, in your new house.
It might have been our first.
And that is Russian Railroads.
Oh.
/ Ultimate Railroads. Dango has the big box that has all the expansions and everything. This is a game that has been on my radar forever, because it came out in like 2013-ish, and I think right from then I had it on my list of ones to check out. Then it just really was out of print and couldn't find it, and never like quite bumped up into my like top games to get. So it's been a long time coming to finally get to try it and play it, and I felt that it totally lived up to what I thought the game, could be, and what excited me about it. It's such a great combination of satisfying engine building combos and then tight worker placement, which that's like speaking our gaming love language.
That's our love language.
Give me fun, like, things to do, but then like the system that I interact with that keep it tight and constrained, and like tough decisions, and like what other players are doing matters, because you block me from something and I have to adapt. We like that kind of stuff in a game like this. This particular play of Russian Railroads, it was one of those where I get to the end and I'm like, okay, I understand the pacing a little better. Like, my strategy was a little bit too, it was shooting for 2 rounds after the game,
that is a bit of the learning curve at the game.
But just to get to play it after so many times that I've 2 years pass and I look into Russian Railroads again. I'm like, oh, this looks really cool. I think I might like this game. And then it repeat that over the years. It was so great to finally get to play it. That Ultimate Edition is just packed with content. It is, if there's one complaint that I think both of us have with kind of the structure of Russian Railroads, it's that there isn't a lot of setup variability within one of the boards. And it does have a little bit of that sandbox feeling of at the beginning of the game, you kind of just decide, I think I'm going to kind of go on this rail, because there's a kind of 3 different ones, or I'm going to do a combination.
Although the tight worker placement does help with that, because when the worker placement's tight, it's like, okay, well, I got to go, you're kind of almost forced
Yeah.
based off what people do. Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be very interested to try some of the other maps because that drastically changes the feel of it. And it could be that, is plenty of variability to just be bouncing between the different maps to not feel like it's, because we don't tend to like the kind of a sandbox game that every game. Look at our cold games video.
Yeah, go check out the cold video.
There's a few games that Left are collecting kind of for that reason, because we like the game to present us with new variables that we have to decide how that pushes us in the game. But it was a great play. I mean, it was a 3-player game and neither of us won.
I think my wife destroyed us.
Yeah, I definitely got destroyed, but I felt good about it. It was one of those things where I achieved what I wanted to. It was just a little bit late with kind of the strategy. But really neat design, really neat engine building, worker placement. Very glad I finally got the chance to try it out.
Yeah, and I haven't even tried any of the other I've essentially only played Russian Railroads. I haven't played any of the modules yet, and my wife loves this game. I really enjoy it.
Is she undefeated? Have you beaten her in it?
I think I won the first time we played a 2-player game of it. It was a close one, but yeah, we are so excited to try some of those. Try all the variability that came in that edition. So yeah, awesome stuff. That is a wonderful selection. For my number 2. I am coming in with a game. Again, Ryan said we were together on vacation. And so this was a game that we played together. I actually got 2 plays of it.
Really?
So I actually had to think about which one was the
break
play.
The rules.
Because that'd be breaking the rules. But I'm going to be coming in with a game that I was a little unsure about going into the month, but coming out of the month, is one I'm very interested in owning myself, and that is Welcome to the Moon. So I've played Welcome 2 a lot. Ryan owned Welcome 2, and it was a game I always enjoyed, really liked it. And then Ryan ended up selling Welcome 2 and getting Welcome to the Moon, and I think last year we didn't even play the full game. We were playing, but then we had to leave for something, so we didn't even finish the game. And I think that kind of just soured my taste. I was just I don't know. This is kind of weird. I don't know, different modules, whatever. So I was a little unsure about it. Playing it this month, I have totally changed my mind on it. I mean, this is way better, and in my opinion. So we played. Obviously, we had 2 plays of it. The module that I think comes to mind for me is the first one we played, where you kind of have this grid and you have to place the numbers in the grid escalating both in the vertical columns and horizontally. And so you kind of, want to start with 1 down in the bottom left and then kind of have this, diagonal row of escalation happening, which something you learn in this module is you can mess yourself up without realizing.
It's why usually that isn't the one I would play with new people, because you can really hose yourself.
Yeah. And it's cool because the different modules, they're not just little variation. It's they make you think a lot differently about how you're placing them.
Yeah.
And so where Welcome to, it was kind of, you're always doing the same kind of mental exercise. These ones, this first one, this whole, how do you place things both for the vertical and the horizontal, that is really interesting. And then, the last one, play of the month, we're doing this whole
mining thing.
Mining and resource, this whole crazy thing. And that was very different. So playing that, it was just so much fun. And I loved in the map that the first module we were using, how so you're not only placing the numbers, but you're building those, are they pipes, or you're connecting all the...
you're connecting the tunnels to then get the satellites.
Right. So I just thought it was really, really cool. And definitely if, I'm still kind of in this stage where I'm letting Ryan buy all the rolling rights or the flipping rights or whatever.
You
all
can
these
feel it out.
And then I'm feeling them out. And then eventually I'll pick one out. And I would say currently this one might be at the top of my list.
Yeah, it's a really good one. and it plays fast. Like both of our games of it, I think, were under a half hour. Just that core decision of the three, everybody has those three options to pick from, and it's a number and an action that are paired together. We've talked about paired drafting, at least that's what we called it in the past. That's something that Cascadia has, which I know we talked about recently.
Love it.
It's just a very interesting decision when you have two things paired together, and it's like, well, how do you value each of those in relation to some of these other pairings? And for those that maybe don't have context on Welcome to the Moon, it basically takes the Welcome to formula and puts it over a campaign of 8 different scenarios that, like Daniel said, are very different in how they work, but still stick to the core system. And one thing I appreciate about it is once people know the core system, it's not hard to teach a new map. It's not like they're so different that it's like, okay, learn this new game. But it's these 8 different ones, but you don't have to play it as a campaign. I haven't played anything of it as a campaign.
Yeah.
There's a whole booklet that you can do this thing. You can just play them as standalone. So you basically have 8 different, maps that you can play on, which is great variability. And I've had a lot of fun with that one too. I'm glad I got to play it a little bit because I bought it like a year and a half ago and like played it twice, and like it was one of those games that you get a new game and it just like wasn't getting to the table. I'm like, man, I really want to play that more. So it was nice to get a couple plays.
Well, and I think when you first told me it was a campaign, that actually immediately
Red
was
alert.
I know Ryan and I are very hesitant.
We've cooled on campaigns.
We've cooled on campaigns. They're just it's such a commitment. And so, maybe you can have one, but I feel like every game's trying to make a campaign these days. So the fact that they're standalone modules is, you can play them that way is really awesome.
Totally. Good pick.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah. Welcome. I'll go to my number 2.
Such a positive culture we've got here. This is just, man. If I'm ever
feeling
down, I just come record a video with Ryan.
Get more reviews if we hated it on each other more.
Just a little more toxicity. Yeah.
So I'm actually going to change my number 2 to one that I did not play with you because I hate playing with you.
That's right.
My number 2, I did not play with you. It was right at the beginning of the month, so we'll see how well I can remember this session.
Right.
But this is Brass Birmingham. And it was
I didn't know you got this one.
Yeah, and this is a hot game right now, largely because it's risen to the number 1 game on Board Game Geek, which is for anybody that's really in the hobby, kind of the most well-known authoritative ranking of games. Now it's very heavily skewed to heavier gamers. But that's, a big deal to be like, this is the number 1. And I can see why it's gotten up that high. I don't think for me it's ever going to get quite into that top tier just because of some of my personal tastes, but it's high for me. It is such a fascinating game. There's a lot of games that kind of fit in this category of fascinating the way the board state grows and that creates a lot of interesting tactical decisions. Where you just another player does something and you're like, oh, I was going to do this, but now that you bought from the coal market, if I build a coal mine now, I'll immediately sell to the coal market, all that coal and flip the tile, which that's one of the biggest things you're trying to do in Brass is build things and get them to flip by using the resources on them and then other buildings that you ship goods. And it's just such an interesting game every time I play it. And one thing I really appreciate is sometimes games that fall in this category that I feel that way about of really interesting board states, sometimes they start out with not a lot of variability. So I think of a game like Yell and Yangtze, which we've played, which is a reboot of Tigris and Euphrates, or a variant on it. That one starts exactly the same every time, and you get new tiles, but it still does feel a little bit at the beginning I'll just kind of do this, whatever at the beginning. But then once everybody starts, then you get kind of the really interesting board state. I feel that way about Hive, which is a 2-player abstract. Yeah. That it's we don't know what we're doing. We're not smart. we don't know this game well
I wish
enough.
They just played the first 2 rounds for you.
Yeah, but once
and
we
then
get into it a little bit,
in.
now it's a really interesting board state. What I love about Brass is how it uses the card-driven system to kind of solve that. Because you get this hand of cards, it's enough that it's going to force everybody to play differently from game to game. And you have to kind of work with what you have. And even though of all the actions you take, only one of the actions actually cares what the card is. Everything else is just trashing a card. It is enough to completely give me enough direction in that early game that I don't feel that way. I feel like I have some interesting I don't feel like I have to make arbitrary decisions up front because of my lack of strategic knowledge of the game. So it was a really good session. It was a 3-player game. It was one where it was, it's kind of hard to tell where everybody's going to land at the end. And I was thinking like, I think I'm going to be quite a bit behind because I was really behind on some of the shipping stuff. I made some blunders in this game. I thought I was going to ship to one of the, I forget what they call them, but there's the beer that you need to ship, and if you do it to one of the external towns, you get like the bonus. And I was like setting up to do it, but I was trying to like optimize to do 2 at once, and I ended up just setting up another one of the players to just steal it, basically. No. And I was like, well, that was a huge mistake. But at the end, I ended up scoring a ton in just rail links, which you can get a lot of points from just strategically placing your links. And we ended up, I think the final score was 127, 117. So it's within 5 points of each other. I was right in the middle. But just a good ending, like to have it be that close. Yeah. And it seems like that happens a lot in my games of Brass, that the endings have been fairly close, probably because I'm like mostly playing with, we're like a bunch of amateurs, just like, so it's like we'd probably just get absolutely destroyed by someone who knew what they were doing.
Right.
But yeah, fascinating game. One that I haven't gotten to the table a ton over the years since I've gotten it. But every time I do, it's just that feeling of like, man, this game has interesting decisions and way I react to players.
Yeah, totally agree with it. I've played it 2 or 3 times, something like that. And yeah, just one of those. It's like, oh, it's always cool when you discover just this is a really unique combination of mechanisms, and you're like trying to just figure out how it all works. It's kind of almost surprising to me that this is the number 1 game. It's
I agree.
It's because it's really cool. It's just shocking to me that I guess it got that popular.
It's not like the theme is what's grabbing people,
right? Like Gloomhaven had that going for it of like an incredible theme and story, and like that makes sense to me. This was so surprising to me, but I think it really does speak to just people playing it and being like, wow, this is a really interesting combination of mechanisms here.
And I think some of it is kind of the second edition effect of, it's a reworking of a much older game. True. And whenever that happens, there's people that already know they don't like it, or it's not their kind of game, that then aren't going to be rating the new version. But I think as time goes on, you can't use that excuse as much, because as it's gotten into the top 10 and now especially to number 1, tons of people that wouldn't have otherwise tried it are going to, and it's still holding strong. So lots and lots of people are feeling the same way about it. Really unique game. It really, I don't have anything else that quite makes me feel the way that I do when playing it.
Sounds like romantic.
Yes. Oh, Brass.
No game makes me feel like Brass does.
Yeah. No, that doesn't say whether it's positive or negative. It just says it's unique.
That's true. Yeah. That could be a really bad thing too.
Well, let's jump to your number 1, right? Is that where we're at?
We are at my number 1.
I can count to 3, I promise.
I am very interested to see what both of our number 1s are. This last month, like I said, Ryan and I were together, and you actually came and visited our new home that we've moved into, new setup here. But as first, just a little shout out to Ryan so we love one of our favorite games of all time is Agricola.
It's a good
Shocker.
game.
It's a good game. You might hear about it more. But we recently Ryan made the decision to kind of upgrade to the revised edition. We've always had the older edition, and never thought we really had a reason to upgrade. But finally looked into it, and you went all in on going to the revised edition. And as I think a housewarming gift, you gave me the revised edition as well. So thank you for that. I'd give you a shout out.
It felt so appropriate because it was like, It includes the Farmers of the Moor expansion, which is the housewarming. You have to heat your home.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even make that connection.
Yeah, that was the housewarming in quotes. Yeah, so you have to heat your home. Then you guys have a baby on the way, and Agricola is all about family growth.
It's all about making babies. That's how you win.
And, I know your wife is excited for a lot of the kind of gardening on your new property.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this encapsulates this move.
But anyways, so thank you. We got to play a 3-player game together of
the final day of vacation.
Final day.
Night, yep.
And I knew some of the upgrades of some of the just aesthetic upgrades. Your discs are now actual farmers, although, we'll always have a soft spot in our heart for those discs. And just everything actually looks good now. They've upgraded the look of things. One complaint. Give us a reference card.
Round reference cards. Yeah, I can't believe
why they got rid of that is just beyond me. But anyways, so that was all. I knew all that, and that was all cool. But the improvement in the cards in the revised edition, it was noticeable the first game where
just
I'm looking at
the overall quality.
Yeah. The cards are so just, each one is cool. And, sometimes in the older edition, some of the cards in my hand, I'm like, okay, I'm never going to
no
play
situation
that. And that's just not that good. And you kind of filter it out. I'm looking through my hand, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
And I felt exactly the same way.
What if I do this? And I could do this. And so it was, it took, that's the most fun part of Agricola, right? You get the hand and you're like trying to craft what strategy am I going to do? And so, my game, I had a card that I can't remember the name of it, but it if the day labor and grain action spaces were occupied, whether by me or someone else, I get a vegetable, which is awesome. And it kind of creates some interesting things of does that
deter us from taking those spaces?
It also kind of deters you from wanting to go to those places, which then leaves it open for me as well.
Yeah, and then I was mad because your wife played something that incentivized her to go to day labor. And I'm like, what is this alliance?
we had a great, so I would just go to get grain and also get a vegetable. Yeah. But then I had Schnapp's Distillery, which lets you convert a vegetable into 5 food. And so, that's just a little microcosm of the different kind of combos you're looking for in this hand of Agricola, because man, it is a tight and stressful game, and you need to maximize whatever you can out of the hand, because the worker placement is as tight as it gets. You're constantly having to pivot, and you're constantly having to prioritize what's most important, while also being opportunistic. That's a hard word. Opportunistic of oh my goodness, there's 8 wood there. Yeah. I don't think I need that right now, but also there's 8 wood there.
Yeah, it's such good value.
Such good value. So man, and then Ryan, you had a combo. I'm trying to remember in the game. Yeah, no, you were doing something
I'll
that
just spoil now that this is also my. You
first
were probably
overlap.
Yeah, this is I think our first crossover in.
I'm gonna do something in editing to make this sound cool right now.
Yeah, make our videos spin, fireworks. Yeah, I totally agree. It was such. We love Agricola, so anytime I get Agricola to the table, there's a good chance it's going to be in competition for this list. But this particular play, first time with the revised edition, and just being like, oh my gosh, this took this game I love so much already and made it better, measurably better.
Better.
More than I realized when I was looking into it. I totally agree that hand of cards, I'm just looking and I'm like, I would want to use any of these, and not just how powerful they are. There were ones that were just interesting, and I was
unique,
like, oh man. And after playing, I've played Agricola almost 80 times or whatever, just seeing something that's like, man, that's really different than other things I've done. Yeah, I had a pretty good combo that I went after. My kind of initial thing was I had an occupation that made it that if I built a room with my second person in the round, I could then have my first person return. So I'm effectively getting an extra action, which is you have to kind of orchestrate that. Then I had one that when I build a room, I put a food on the next 4 round spaces. It's kind of like the well when you put those out.
Yeah.
And then the clincher was this royal wood improvement that whenever I don't know if it was specifically when building rooms or if it also was like for improvements, but basically when you pay wood for it, you get half the wood back rounded down. And so if I'm paying 5 wood for the room, I get 2 of it back, which with my strategy of wanting to get to 2 rooms as quickly as I could,
you need wood,
that just really helped me to like save a couple actions in doing that. You know, I only utilized it twice, really, that combo of extending to 4. But to get that basically netted me 8 food, and it got me 2 extra actions back while being a little more efficient with the wood. So that was great. And then I had another interesting occupation. I think it was the illusionist. That every time I took resources from an accumulation space, so where they're actually accumulating, I could discard a card out of my hand permanently to get 1 more of that resource. And so I basically strategized that, like, okay, I don't think I'm going to play any of these cards. That basically, every time I go to an accumulation, I can just get 1 more, which things like stone, that's huge.
Massive.
To get 1 more stone.
Or reed.
Yeah, or reed. And so, yeah, that really worked out well. And I had some other interesting ones. I had one that like I could put in my empty fields could like hold a single boar, which like helps me like manage some of my animal stuff as I was filling out my farm. It's such a good game. And like, I felt like that experience with the hand and the revised edition was like the best I had felt about like a hand in Agricola, is just as far as satisfaction in like my last 20 plays probably of Agricola. And so I'm like, man, this, and the fact that both of us felt that way tells me this is probably not an anomaly. Like, this is just like this new edition really cleaned up the cards. It's outstanding stuff. We love the game.
Yeah.
It was just like the perfect end to the trip to get to play this big game. I think I won somewhat handily, but you know, you
Ryan,
still put it on your list.
We don't talk about scores in the top plays. Come on.
I didn't do scores, just rankings.
Oh, you just right.
Yes.
Yes, you did win. I was Ryan's pretty good at Agricola, but
at least in our circles.
But we've caught up a little bit. Yeah, Agricola, I can't think of another game where, you know, I don't know how long it took us to play. What was it? A couple hours maybe?
It was probably encroaching on 2.5.
The whole time I'm just like, okay, you know, because it's just so tense.
And I can see why a lot of people
don't want that. But it's so satisfying.
It is.
And it rewards you so much. Or you have a terrible game. Yeah. And that's not great.
Well, and we're calibrated to the Agricola experience. So we know, like, it feels so rewarding to do certain things in the game because we know how hard it is and what kind of the average kind of end state you can get to, which is another huge thing that I think makes it so satisfying is you at the end get to look at this unique farm, which is a big thing the Farmers of the Moor expansion helps with because you get a unique configuration of those forest immortiles at the beginning. And like which occupations play, it's just like this unique snapshot of like, this is what happened this game. And like, I did it, you know, like I pulled it all together. So satisfying.
Yeah. And you look at your farm at the end and it's just filled with agonizing decisions you had to make throughout the game where you had to pivot. I mean, you're constantly looking and you're like, the decision isn't clear. Do I take the 1 reed I need now, or do I take the 4 stone I don't need now? But man, that's a better value than. And the game is just, that's the whole game. And then the Farmers of the Moor adding the what are those cards called? The
bonus action.
The bonus actions where it doesn't use one of your workers, but you're delaying taking actions out on the board. And so what was already tight out there, you're just making even tighter, but you're getting free.
You're like, if I take a bonus action, I get more actions, but I'm going to get not first pick of what's out there. It's the same feeling with like, you know, it's so important to Agricola to be efficient with your actions. And there's a lot of these actions that let you do something and play a minor improvement. So you almost always are like, I want to do things together. Like, I want to play this minor improvement, but I want to do it when I'm doing something I'm already doing. But then there's times where it's like, well, I could take start player and play a minor improvement. How important is it that I have this minor improvement now? How important is start player? Because sometimes it's crucial and it's like hard to know because you're looking at the person, if I don't take start players, this person looking at their farm, like, are they going to be going after some of the key things I need to get to next? It's less action efficient for me to take start player, but it guarantees that I can execute on it. Yeah, it just, man, does it, the considerations of everything.
Oh man, we could wax on Agricola all day, isn't that, Ryan?
Yes. So for the next 40 minutes.
And yet it's not a game that everyone's gonna like. Like, I totally recognize that. And I can get why people like, Caverna more and whatnot, because they just don't want that tense experience, but we love that. That is just like the core of it. The cards, everything just comes together. It's a brilliant game. Well, I guess there you have it, Ryan. Those are our top.
That's a good month of gaming. That's a good batch of games right there.
Those are a good batch of games. And our first overlap, that was exciting. So it's about time. I thought you just didn't like me.
Yeah. So it just shows that Agricola can overcome. That's how good Agricola
is. Yeah. Those are our top 3 plays of July 2023. Like we mentioned, we've got links to all of these games down in the description below, and we got a couple videos here. We talked about Quacks Quedlinburg, how much we love that game. Well, we actually did a review on it, and you can check it out right there, and we will see you guys in the next video.